excited you guys are. Let's take a breath this morning. It's a wonderful life, right? Wonderful life. That's what we're talking about this month. It's a wonderful life, and looking at the ways in which we can really allow this to be a wonderful life. I have heard some complaints about it not being such a wonderful life sometimes. And you know what? It is a wonderful life. It is a wonderful life. And what we can do is just open our hearts and open our minds and allow that wonderful life that is to be revealed in and through and as each one of us without being attached to what that looks like. When we get attached to what a wonderful life looks like, then we start to judge and we start to say, well, life isn't so wonderful. Well, this is happening and that's happening and this happened and this didn't go right or whatever. That doesn't mean it's not a wonderful life. It doesn't mean it's not a wonderful life. We have to give up our attachment to what a wonderful life looks like. And so I'm inviting you to do that. Whatever's going on for you in your individual life, whatever's going on in the world, whatever's going on any place, let's just remember that this is a wonderful life. This is the only life we know about that we get, regardless as to what we may think about reincarnation or how many times we've been here before and how many times we're going to come back and what we're going to come back as and all that. This is the only life we know about. And so why not allow it to be a wonderful life? Why not accept it as being a wonderful life? Why not claim it as being a wonderful life? And you know what? When we claim it as so, just as the reading was saying, Ernest Holmes says, when you act as if, guess what? It begins to be revealed. It begins to be a part of our experience when we act as if. So let's just start right now acting as if it's a wonderful life. And when you start to act that way and really believe that it's a wonderful life, your vibration just goes up. And when our vibration goes up, it becomes a wonderful life because everything around us starts to change because vibration is higher. And so as we've been going through the month, I've been talking about the gift giving, since this is a gift giving season. In the first week, we talked about giving ourselves the gift of a day off. And that's how the book 24/6 came up, because the author talks about giving ourselves a day off from being plugged in to devices, electronic devices, our phones, our computers, our iPads, our TVs, all that, just giving ourselves a day off. Anything that would block us from being fully present and really appreciating our life and being fully present in our life and fully aware of what's going on in our lives. We want to give ourselves a day off. Has anybody been doing that yet? Giving themselves just a day off? And even if you can't do a whole day, just giving ourselves a little time off, just to take a breath, just to step back, just to get refocused, to get centered, to get anchored. That's one of the gifts that we're giving ourselves. Not just this month, but we do this. These things that we go through each month are cumulative. We make all of this a part of our lives. Last week we talked about the gift of willingness. Willingness, and sometimes we have to get to willingness to give ourselves that day off, to be willing to give ourselves a day off. So how many people got a chance to be willing last week? I know my hand goes up pretty quickly. Just being willing not only to give yourself a day off, but being willing to do anything that you've been resisting or holding back from. And so that's important too. And so this week, this is tied closely to willingness. We're talking about the gift of going with the flow. The gift of going with the flow. Let's take a breath. The gift of going with the flow. Going with the flow. You hear that a lot. People say, go with the flow. Go with the flow. But the flow, the flow just means moving forward easily in a stream, freely in a stream. The flow can also mean circulation, to circulate, to be loose and free. And when we're told to go with the flow, it's because usually when somebody tells us to go with the flow, it's because we're not doing what they want us to do. Or what they think we should be doing. So they tell us to go with the flow. How many times do we say that to other people also? Oh, just go with the flow. And that's not what the flow is all about. The flow, going with the flow does not necessarily mean going along to get along or doing what everybody else is doing or going along just because it's easier. That's not what going with the flow is about in the context that I'm speaking of it right here and right now. Going with the flow means just being open and receptive to that flow that is. The flow is that God presence. The flow is that there's always moving, always creating, always being. Oh, it is our very life. And so going with that is how we get to live the lives that we were created to live. And so going with the flow for us means letting go of anything that would block us, letting go of anything that would hinder us, letting go of anything that would block or encumber that free flow of spirit. That free flow of spirit. It's like when you think about water flowing down a stream. When there's a block, if there's anything to block it, anything to dam it up, it finds another way. It finds another way to keep moving because water keeps moving. It keeps moving. It's always seeking an opening. That's what the flow is. Spirit is always seeking an opening. And when we are blocked, it keeps going until it finds an opening. And because God always works through an open heart. God always works through an opening. Life works through openings. And so to the degree that we are open, then God can work through us. But to the degree that we are closed and have those blocks of attachment, those blocks of resistance, those blocks of unwillingness, those blocks of anxiety, those blocks of fear, those blocks of doubt, whatever it is that we may be allowing to hold us back, to block, we cannot be in the flow. We can't go with the flow. And so I invite you, first of all, to breathe. To breathe. That's the easiest way to be in the flow. Because there's only one breath, and that's the breath of God. And so when we're holding our breath, we're not really being in full alignment with that one breath, allowing that one breath to have full sway in and as our lives. And so just remembering to breathe, remembering to open up, remembering to move into that place of alignment is one of our ways that we can go with the flow. We can go with the flow. And so a couple of things I want to ask you to do today. One of them is to be aware of shifting your vibration. It's really important for us to shift our vibration because our vibration, we can tell where our vibration is by our feeling. Vibration is determined by the feeling nature, the feelings that we have. So when you are not in the flow, when we are not in alignment with spirit and things are bottled up, we get anxious, we get tense, we get angry, we get reclusive, we get all these things that just kind of bottle us up. And so we get uptight, so nothing seems to be moving. Nothing seems to be moving. The only way that we can shift that vibration, because what happens is, as I've said many times before, when we are, whatever level of vibration we are vibrating at, we attract other things that are vibrating at that same level. So it could be illness, it could be dis-ease, it could be discomfort, or it could be joy and things that make us really happy, that make us really, really, really pleased with our lives and to recognize that we really are having a wonderful life. But it's up to us to shift that vibration, which means it's up to us to know how we're feeling, which means we have to always be tuned in, which means we have to always be aware, always be fully present right where we are. That's why the book is important, to practice 24/6 living, so that we know that we get to the point where we recognize how we're feeling. We get to the point where we recognize this doesn't feel good. I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling whatever the case may be. And then shift to a feeling that makes us, that gives us relief. Because the key to shifting our vibration is relief. Relief. When you're feeling a particular way, your vibration is raised when you feel relief from it. If you're feeling angry and you're really, really uptight, if you can just take a breath, think a different thought, do some forgiveness, whatever it takes for you to shift your vibration so that you can move out of that angry feeling, move out of that low place to a higher place. It may just be one step up. Maybe not so angry as just to plain old pissosity. That's a step up. You start to feel a little better. And that your vibration gets a little better. There's more of an opening. You're moving closer to the flow. We're moving more and more into that flow when we can shift it up. And then when you recognize where you are then, shift it again. What's the next thing? What's the next level up? What will make me feel better right now? What will make me feel better right now? What will help me to release right now? What will help me to let go right now so that I can keep my vibration higher and going higher and going higher? And the higher our vibration goes, the more in alignment we are with the flow. I'd like you to think about going with the flow as being in a rowboat and with oars. And when you're in the flow, you can put the oars in the boat and you can just go downstream because the flow is downstream. The pattern of the flow is downstream. And so have you ever felt in your life like you were really in the flow, not from a spiritual standpoint, but just everything's working right, you're making all the lights when you're on the, going from one place to another. You go in the store and you get out quicker than you thought you were, and your kids are acting like you really want them to, or your parents are acting like you really want them to, or whatever, your coworkers or your boss or whatever the case may be. Everything's working together. That's when we feel like we're really in the flow. You know, sometimes you're just like, yes, everything's working. That's what the flow feels like. That's downstream. If you were in a boat, you'd just be going right downstream. But then we run into that boulder over there sometimes, and there's a block. So when we are aware of what's happening, we can just say, oh, let me just get back into the stream here. Let me just get back into the flow here. And that's how we have to do in our lives, just get back into the flow. And keeping in mind that because the flow is downstream, when we start to struggle, when we start to effort, when we start to feel like we're having a really hard time doing whatever it is, getting where we want to go, doing whatever it is, it's because we're trying to go upstream. We're going against the current. We're going upstream. When we're in the flow, it's downstream living all the way. When we are struggling, we're trying to pretend we're salmon. And we are going upstream, trying to make our way upstream. And it gets harder and harder and harder. And if you're in that boat and you're trying to row upstream and you're feeling really, really tense, really uptight, really like life is really hard, put the oars in the boat, turn the boat around, put the oars in, and then just let the boat go downstream. Now, this takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of willingness. It takes a lot of willingness to live in that place of the not know when we're going to go with the flow. Because once you put those oars back in the boat, you're not in control any longer. You're not the one who knows exactly where you're going. Not that you knew anyway, but you thought you did. But we're not the ones who are in control. So being willing to do that downstream living, that's how we shift our vibration when we start to feel better. When we start to feel better and we start to say, you know what, I'm going to try it this way. I'm going to act as if. I'm going to act as if things are going really, really smoothly. I'm going to act as if this is the way I want to go. I'm going to act as if. Some years ago, my daughter was acting. She was a theater actress. And she was approached by a director who asked her to do this one-woman show on Billie Holiday. And that show had 17 songs in it. And she was completely freaked out because she said she wasn't a singer. She said, I'm not a singer. And so I said, but you can sing. And she said, yeah, but I'm not a singer. So she went through this. She was agonizing over whether or not she should do this show. She really wanted to do it because it could really take her career to another level. And she was freaked out of her mind because she was not a singer. And she would go to the rehearsals, and she'd come back because she did such a poor job with all the songs and all the music. And the director was wondering, why on earth she asked Rochelle to do that. To do that role. And she came home one night and she was just so upset. And she said, Mom, I don't think I can do it because I'm not a singer. I'm an actor. And I said, Act like you can sing. That's all you got to do, act like you can sing. And something clicked for her. And she said, I can I? And yeah, act like you can sing. You're a great actress. Get up there and act like you can sing. And so she did. And it was an award-winning show that she did, but it was because she finally shifted her mindset about what she could do. She gave up her attachment to the fact of who she thought she was. I'm not a singer, I'm an actor. And so when she started acting like a singer, then she was able to sing. Comfortably. She was able to do what needed to be done because she gave up that idea of, this is what I am, I can't change this. So this is what I am, this is the lane I gotta stay in. Once she gave that up, she was able to go with the flow and allow spirit to sing through her. Because that's what I was trying to tell her. God's going to do the singing. You just get up there, act like you can sing, and open your mouth. God will do the rest. And that's how it works for all of us in any areas of our lives. Whatever it is we're feeling like we can't do. So we shift our vibration, first of all, when we start acting as if it shifts our vibration, we start to attract more and more of what we want into our experience. And so the other thing, other than shifting our vibration, is learning to laugh more, learning to laugh at ourselves, learning to laugh at not other people, but learning to laugh at ourselves, learning to laugh at situations, the absurdity of some situations we find ourselves in. You know, we can laugh at them when we can rise above them. When we can get our vibration up, then when certain things come up, or we act a certain way, or certain things happen, we are above it, so we can laugh at it. When we're in it, there's nothing funny about it. I don't care what it is. But when we can rise above it, we can laugh at it. And when we can laugh at it, it shifts everything because it gets us back into the flow because we open up. We open up because we get to see it through a different lens. When we can laugh at ourselves, I laugh at myself all the time because I'm one of the funniest people I know. To me, I tickle myself a lot. And I can't believe that I do some of the things I do. I think some of the things I think. That's why I share them all with you guys because it's like, you know what? This is how life works. And we all have our own issues and our own ways of doing things and our own ways of doing the crazies sometimes. So sometimes it just helps to know that we are all one. We're all in this life together. It is such a wonderful life, and that we get a chance to grow together. We get a chance to grow into that place and space we want to be. We get a chance to be all that we were created to be just by simply not taking ourselves so seriously, not taking life so seriously. Yes, there are serious things that happen in life. But when we walk through life so serious about everything, taking everything so seriously, not finding any humor in anything, when we can't find humor in things, we can't find creativity because there's no room for it. So when we can just open up and say, wow, that was not the best move that I just made. Oh, wow, this is not the situation I wanted to be in. But look here I am again. And then opening up, which means we put the oars down and we're headed downstream again. Because once we head downstream, there's that within us that already knows where we're going, already knows how to get us there, already knows where it wants to be, already knows how it wants to be. And so all we need to do is open up and just allow it to happen in and through and as each and every one of us. Each and every one of us can do this. And so I invite you, the third thing to do is to let go with the flow become a part of your spiritual practice, or let it become a spiritual practice for you. Going with the flow. Let that be a spiritual practice. Going with the flow. We already know how to go against the flow, but learning to go with the flow, learning to turn that boat around and start to have the visual. When you close your eyes, see yourself in a boat just sprawled out. and it's just going downstream. And you don't have to worry about a thing. It's just going down the way it's supposed to go, because there's that already knows how it's supposed to go. But there's certain things you have to do in order to be in that place of letting go and with the flow being a part of your spiritual practice or a spiritual practice. You got to breathe. You got to breathe. Because so long as we're holding our breath, there is no flow that's happening. There's no, we are blocking the flow when we're holding our breath. So I invite you to breathe all the time. Breathe. Breathe. Our meditation practice keeps us in a place of the flow. It keeps us in alignment with the flow. So doing a meditation practice consistently over and over again is so very important. Breathing, so very, very important. Blessing. Blessing. We talked about blessing for a whole month, and I want you to know that when we talk about things for a month and then talk about something else for the next month, it's not just for that month that we're going to do it. That our practices are cumulative. They become a part of our lives. And so someone shared with me over the weekend that what that series on blessing had meant to them in their lives, and how they find themselves doing it all the time, and what a difference it has made in their lives. How many people are still blessing people? Yeah. Remembering to bless. Letting that be a part of your spiritual practice, because what that does, it knocks down the walls that we put up between ourselves and others. It knocks down that them and us concept that we have sometimes. And so when we can start remembering to bless, when we can start remembering kindness, remembering to be kind, remembering compassion, remembering all these things that bring us back into oneness, all those things that bring us back into alignment, all those things that bring us back into the flow. This is a part of our spiritual practice. These are the things that take us into the flow, and that's how we make going with the flow a part of our spiritual practice. By the little things we do, the little cumulative things, blessing, gratitude, loving, kindness, compassion, forgiving, taking a break, breathing. All of those kinds of things bring us back to that place of oneness, bring us back to the only thing that is, the allness and the fullness of God, which is right where we are. And importantly, doing what's before us to do. That's a part of our spiritual practice. Doing what is before you to do. Doing what's before you to do. When you do what's before you to do you know that it cuts down on anxiety so much, because you're not worrying about what you got to do down there, or what you got to do next week, or what you got to do 2 weeks from now. You're just looking at right here, right now, being in the moment, doing what's before you to do in each and every moment of each and every day. Doing what is before me to do keeps me fully present, keeps me right here and right now in this moment. When we start to do what's before us to do, when we start to breathe, when we start to do all these things that I mentioned as a part of our spiritual practice, remembering to pray more than we worry. Remembering to pray more than we worry. Remembering to pray more than we worry. When we are doing what's before us to do, then it takes us out of that worry state. Doing what's before us to do can mean stopping right now to say a word of prayer. And I don't mean necessarily that you got to stop, because you can pray while you're moving along. But just doing what is before us to do. Praying more than we worry. Trusting God, trusting the process, trusting life. All of that's a part of going with the flow. And so I invite you to give yourself the gift this month and forward of going with the flow. Give yourself the gift of being in the flow and recognizing that God is the flow. Give yourself the gift. And if you don't know how to do it, take a breath. It'll be revealed to you what your next step should be, what your next step must be. Thich Nhat Hanh, in talking about going with the flow, said, smile, breathe, and go slowly. Smile, breathe, and go slowly. I think that's pretty good. Smile, breathe, and go slowly. And you know, as you do that, that boat turns around and we're headed downstream. So give yourself the gift of going with the flow. Practice downstream living and see what a difference it makes and what a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful life this is. So let's take a breath as we just turn within in this moment. Just turning within in this moment to that only breath that is. Knowing that this breath is my very life. This breath is the life of us all. This breath breathes each and every one of us. This onlyness that is breathing us is the only power, it is the only present, it is the only mind, it is the only life. I choose to call this God. It is my life. It is the life of each of us here this day. And so as we move into that place of oneness, conscious oneness with it, we allow ourselves to just go with the flow, knowing that the flow is God, to move ourselves, to allow ourselves to be in that flow. And as we do this, all things are made new. We release and let go of those things that don't serve us. We release and let go of the anxiety and the fear and the doubt and the regrets and all that stuff. And we just open our hearts to downstream living. Downstream living where everything is smooth, everything is made new, everything is laid out before us by God who goes before us, making straight our way in all ways and all things. And so I know that healing is happening for each and every one of us in every aspect of our lives. I speak a word of healing for each and every one of us. For everyone within the sound of my voice and beyond, knowing that God is in the midst of everything, every situation, every circumstance. So we release the need to hold on and we just let it go. Moving into the flow, going with the flow, going with God. As I open this circle of prayer, I pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer. You may speak their names silently or loud, and you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God is. I know that the flow is. That each of them moves in that flow. For God is blessing and keeping each and every one of them. This prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer this day, knowing that God is in the midst. God is in the midst. I simply say thank you, Father, Mother God, for everything. I'll just allow it to be now. And so it is.